Melinda, I'm tired of it. They're running over us, and they're not going to run over me.
And he was telling me that it sounded like I was being oppressed by some demons.
Obviously, nobody can withstand his full presence.
So what are we doing tonight?
This one is addiction and recovery only, because I think just about everybody has either dealt with it on their own or they know somebody who has, whether it's a family member or a friend. It's something that has touched everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think people who were on the fence about getting help with their own issues, they, if they happen across us, hopefully that's a nudge that might knock them off the fence in the right direction.
Right.
Or if somebody happens across this that knows somebody who is struggling with addiction of whatever kind. Mine was alcohol. Hers was all of her stuff. And so addiction takes a lot of forms, whether it's, alcohol, pornography, cigarettes. What would you call yours? What would you call yours?
I don't know what
just substance abuse.
Yeah, I was gonna say illicit drugs, but
that
one too.
It takes a lot of
and
forms.
Alcohol.
Yeah, it takes a lot of forms, and so I think having that, if they know somebody who is dealing with any of those, like maybe, hey, check these people out. Just trying to encourage people. Like, just because you're in addiction doesn't mean that there's not an end to it. Doesn't mean that there's not hope on the other side of it. And then if you are a Christian currently, or even if you're not, there's a good chance you might be a Christian after you get through the process.
Yeah.
Right.
Just from my experience of seeing people who have gone through recovery and all of that. And then now you can see I think there should be more pride in overcoming addiction. A lot of people, at least in my circles, they try to push it down, like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. It's like they're ashamed of it instead of being proud of what they've achieved in it.
Like, I definitely feel like over the years that to me has gotten, and it could be just because of the people that I'm surrounded with. To me seems like it's being celebrated way more than what it used to be now. There's no shame in my game, and I don't allow it on anyone else in my world, if that makes sense. So to me, I feel like more celebrated, and we tell people all the time, God, that if he did it for one, he can do it for another. So like, I love sharing testimonies, hearing testimonies, which is what I think you guys do. So when people are listening to your freedom and other freedom, and then how to get freedom, I believe it's just saying that you're in the freedom business, God is in the freedom business, and more can achieve and accomplish it as we work together. So I love what you guys are doing. I'm a fan.
Oh, thank you.
I actually had, when I was doing my training, there was a girl, it was just me and her that day. And I don't know how we got on the subject of it, but I told her a lot about, my stuff that I went through. And she was just sitting there and she was just looking at me. She goes, "You are a walking blessing." I was like, "Well, thank you." She's like, "No, like she said, I've always heard of that kind of stuff." She said, "But I've never actually spoken to somebody that has gone through all that kind of stuff." And she would just sit there, and then just a couple minutes later, like nothing would even be being said. And she would just be like, "Man," she said, just a walking blessing. Because like, since I've been working there, I used to be like what he's talking about around like at work and stuff like that. I would be kind of scared to talk about my past. And I've gotten to where now, even my managers, like my director on the floor I work on, and she's over the float pool part. But then like some of the other people, I've even talked to them. So like on Mother and Baby, I talked to the educator because we were talking about they call them NOWS babies that are born addicted to substances. And, I told her, I said, I used to judge those types of people, like even when I was at Love Lady, my very first week, there was a woman, she was about 9 months pregnant. And you might remember, it was when I got there, it was in December of 2018. But she was there. She was in, not phase 1. What's it called right before phase 1? That
we call it overflow now. I don't know what we called it then.
What's it called now?
Overflow.
No, it wasn't that. It was a certain, I can't remember what
crisis.
It was called,
I think we called it the crisis storm.
I don't think it was I can't remember what it was called, but it is it still in the same area that it used to be? On the first floor?
Okay, first floor is phase 1.
Yeah. So it was the second floor.
Second floor
behind
the second floor desk, the main desk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Behind there. Yeah, we've called it the crisis storm, but we felt like that was speaking crisis over the situation, and we got enough of that without adding to it.
Yeah.
So now we call it overflow.
Maybe it was overflow at that point. Maybe that's what it was. But it was, she was in there with us, and I knew she was pregnant, and she was going through the withdrawals, and I was trying not to be judgmental, and because my brother, the one that just passed away, he had a little girl that her mom was a bit addicted to Roxy's. And I've never met this niece of mine, but she, I heard about, the pain that the baby went through with the withdrawals and all that. So I always had this negative attitude about that. So that girl, she ended up going to labor when I think we were in phase 1 at that point. And she had gone into labor, and she came back from the hospital crying. She was addicted to Suboxone at the time. And so she came back from the hospital, and she was crying because DHR took her baby. And I'm sitting in the desk in the big room when you very first come in there.
Civic room.
The big classroom. Yeah. I was sitting in there, and everybody's going up to her, oh, it's okay. And they see me sitting over there. They're like, did you hear what happened? And I'm just like, yep. Well, aren't you going to say something? Don't you feel bad? I'm like, no. I was like, why would I feel bad? She made a stupid decision, and this is what happens, And, it took me a long time to quit thinking like that. After I got out of my recovery, I still felt that way. But then since getting in the medical field, I've learned that it's not all so black and white. Yeah. Because with me, it took me, 3, after I left the program, I still relapsed when I very first came home. And so I know how hard it is because I went through restoration twice when I was in there. So I know how hard it is without being pregnant. So I never thought about it, when you're pregnant, how hard it can be. And then I found out from nurses and doctors that it's actually better on the baby to not stop cold turkey because it can end up harming the child itself. And we had a miscarriage when I very first got home. I got pregnant. What was it, 3 months? 3 or 4 months in, I got pregnant.
Sure,
I got pregnant. And I was still on my Seroquel from when I was at Love Lady.
Okay.
And I found out by going on Dr. Google that it's bad for the babies. Well, instead of consulting it with my doctor, I'm like, okay, well, I need to just go ahead and come off of it. And I did not realize that Seroquel withdrawals is 10 times worse than heroin, anything. I was sick. He had to take me at one point. This was before I got pregnant, I think. I had ran out, and he actually had to take me to the hospital and just for me to get seen and get more medicine. Yeah. So I just, I quit cold turkey when I was pregnant, and I threw up for 3 or 4 months straight and ended up losing the baby. And that's when I started kind of finding out how all that worked.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to, do what?
I said, yeah, no, every situation and circumstance is different, and it can be. I think for me, it's because there's so much desperation and so much to be considered. I'm very grateful that I it's there's not room to judge because
Right.
we've got to deal with the situation at hand, and the situation at
Exactly.
hand is we've got a broken woman and a newborn and an infant growing, and and trying to develop, and so there's not room to judge. There's only room
Right.
to love and to get through it. And how are we going to help them get through it? Because we know that fear is a huge, especially for anyone in recovery, fear. But then when you're pregnant on top of it, fear it really dominates. So I get it.
That's what we were talking about when I was in there talking to the educator, because I was doing that stuff, and she was telling me, that on that floor, they really try to, get the mother to be a part of, the helping the baby with the withdrawals, with like, the skin on skin care, the, just the holding them, the comforting them. And even in the NICU, I worked with a baby that I just sat in the back and just held him. His mom was kind of coming and going to visit him, and I held him when she wouldn't be there. And it just, when I was talking to the educator, I told her, I said, told her about my past, and she said I think that you having that past, you can relate to these moms and be able to help them to not feel judged and talk them through this kind of stuff. And then, like, also on top of that, the losses that we've had, we can help those people through that too. And it's just, I didn't realize how much goes into, you don't automatically get your kid taken away. There's these things of like, depression medicine, this, that, like there's so much more into it than just the black and white. Hey, you're doing stuff and you're going to get your kid taken away. And it's just been really mind opening, the entire process with it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it is mind blowing. Go ahead.
What's that?
No, go ahead. I'm listening to you.
The when you said that about, there's not really room for judgment, it reminded me that there's actually been one person, I don't know who they are, it's just some random keyboard warrior, that has commented on our stuff and said, how about just don't do drugs?
I haven't seen
Good
that.
idea.
That's because it's a great job, my guy. You'd be a great candidate for the Captain Obvious commercials.
Yeah. I wish I could go back and not do that.
No, you didn't see it, because as soon as it popped up there, I get notifications when people comment on our stuff. And so as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, so I clicked on it and I was like, oh, okay, so you're an idiot, and then deleted it. So it's like, yeah, that's a great thing to aim for in a perfect universe that clearly doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So not to put you on the spot or anything, but what would, aside from the obvious of like, yeah, that's a great point, what would your take be on like your response to that comment? I guess if you saw it, if somebody came up to you and just said, how about these people just don't do drugs? What would your response be? I'd be interested to know.
Well, I mean, clearly it's not that easy. I mean, the epidemic and what people don't ever, that no one ever intends for it to get where it's gotten. And if it was that easy, then it wouldn't be an issue. But I mean, there's the drug epidemic and what addiction has cost society. Clearly, that just don't do it. There's a lot of things in what we just don't do, but we do anyway. I mean, that's where we have to find that higher power. We've got to find, that whatever and everybody's got different reasons. They got to, what leads them to addiction or what ends up getting them captivated in it. And there's things to figure out. It's just, I wish it were that easy, but it's not that easy.
Yeah.
No, you said about an epidemic. Do you happen to know the number of how many people have died because of like fentanyl?
No idea, but I know that number's been rising for years.
I saw statistics not too long ago, but I don't remember what they were.
I was hoping you did, because I don't.
No, I don't. It's terrible. It's sad. It's a lot. I know for us to see the increase in, and I expect, because the more people we touch, the more people we know, the more
Yeah.
that we're, the more life we see, of course, the more death we're going to see. And so but in the past 5 years, it's drastically increased on the people that we've known that's passed from a drug overdose. So
Yeah.
the
So-
numbers.
I know it was getting to a point where, so me and him were talking about before, that it's gotten to where at one point I would get on Facebook and it would be almost every week someone else. Like, I have a picture, I'll probably have him put it on the video at the end, but I have a picture from my second time in restoration, I want to say it was. And it was during my brain is just not working tonight. Tablescape. No, is that what it's called? Tablescapes?
Yeah, the Christmas event
Yeah.
we have in December.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was thinking that, but then I started thinking about games on your phone, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm calling it a game or
No,
actually what it is.
Tablescapes. It's one of our favorite nights of the year.
Yeah. And I have a picture from the night of Tablescapes when I was in restoration, and I am surrounded by like 4 or 5 different girls, and all of them are gone now.
Lord.
One was actually Miss Barbara, or Barb. Yeah. Miss
Okay.
Barb.
And she did
One of
not
them
die
was
of an
her.
overdose, but yes.
Yeah, she died. She was just sick, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. She was one of them. I don't know about any of the others, if it was a drug overdose or not. I just know that they passed. Another one's 2 of them's names was Sheila.
Okay.
And then I can't remember the other girl's name. We called her Baby Mama. She was pregnant during restoration. Her name was Ashley. I think hers was a car accident.
Okay.
I can't remember who the other ones were, but it was just I have my arms around, and then it's just like 3 or 4 of them just all surrounding me, and they've all passed away from one way or the other.
So the CDC says that the 12-month period ending in January of 2025 indicates overdose deaths at 82,138. And more specifically, I'm blind, sorry, hang on. 48,422 of those are fentanyl.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because so much stuff is laced with fentanyl.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable.
And that stuff is potless. So when I had a shoulder surgery,
God.
when was it?
It was like 2 years ago. It was around Christmas a couple of years ago.
And I went into the hospital to have my surgery done. They're putting 4 titanium pins in my left shoulder and then a nylon strap between them to hold my shoulder together. And they had to put a nerve blocker in my neck before they went and did it. And for that, to put that nerve blocker in, they came in and they put something in my IV drip, and they said, "All right, we're going to give you something to help, a sedative to help you deal with, blah, blah, blah." And I don't remember who asked, if it was me or who it was. Anyway, somebody asked what it was, and they're like, "Oh, it's fentanyl." And I was like, "Huh." And I was already kind of loopy, so I didn't really think about it. And they didn't know, I guess, that I don't take medicine for anything.
He won't even take Tylenol.
So I have the what do you call it when you the tolerance.
High
I have
tolerance.
the tolerance for medicine of like a gnat. So I guess they gave me whatever they would give somebody of my size and however they calculate it.
Yeah, you calculate it off for your weight. And
Yeah,
all
and then
that.
so they gave it to me, and then a little bit later, I'm waking up to people yelling at me and slapping me in the arms, the face, the legs, and I keep hearing the word breathe, and I'm like, "What do you mean breathe? It's involuntary. I'm breathing. What are you
Did
talking
they
about?" And then a
Narcan
few
you?
minutes, huh?
Did they Narcan you?
No, they gave me too much fentanyl, and every time I went to pass out, I'd stop breathing.
No, Narcan is what they give you when you're
To reverse
overdosing.
it.
So that's why she's asking.
No.
The
No.
anesthesiologist that gave him that stuff, he saw that he was doing that breathing, and he just looks at me and his parents and says, "Just keep making sure that, just keep smacking and make sure he's breathing.
Oh,
Make sure."
jeez.
I know. I was like, "What?" Like his oxygen. I kept watching it because at that point I was already working
Yeah.
in medical stuff. So I'm sitting there watching all of his vitals, and I'm like, his oxygen was dropping down to like the 70s and 80s. every time he'll close his eyes. And that doctor's just like, oh, just keep smacking him. He'll be fine. I'm like, no. Like,
And then so I got through that, and then I got out of surgery, and they gave me more fentanyl.
No, they gave him Norco.
Norco. That's what it was.
And then they gave him a Norco when he got out. Well, then his mom was in the room visiting with us, and he's like, complaining about being in pain and stuff. She goes, oh, he's in pain. She goes to the nurse, hey, nurse, can you give him something else for pain? He's complaining that he's hurting. So they give him another Norco on top of that. It was not a pretty sight. We went to Chick-fil-A afterwards. He thinks it's so funny when I tell him the story.
It's funny now.
Because he don't remember it. I take him to Chick-fil-A afterwards, and for some reason I was still sitting. I think I was looking at the food. I was doing something after I'd already ordered it. And the woman sticks her head out, and she's like, did you need something? He goes, no, we've already got everything. We're just looking. We don't need nothing. I'm like, if you don't, be quiet.
So they massively.
It was horrible.
I would say massively, but they slightly.
No, I'd say massively.
Misjudged how much medicine to give me. But my point in saying all that is how the fentanyl was when it was they gave me too much, and I went to sleep.
Hospital.
I just went to sleep, and if I just quit breathing when I'd go to sleep.
Well, yeah, very potent. That's why.
Yeah, I've actually gotten a hold of fentanyl when I was doing heroin, and I didn't. That was when it started becoming like real. When I stopped doing it was when it started really heating up. Because I had already been off of heroin when I came to Lovelady. I was just still trying to come off of meth at that point. That's what I relapsed on all those times. So I've been clean off of heroin since November of 2018.
Okay.
But I got a hold of some during the summer of that year, and I thought it was just, regular heroin. And I remember I went over to this house of these people, and I'd never smoked it before. I had always snorted it, and they were smoking it. There's all these different things. So I'm just, doing all the things with everybody. And then it was almost like I blacked out because I don't remember much of the rest of the night. I remember going over to this person's house, and I was up all night. And the next day, I went back over to the house I was staying at. At the time I was staying, I'd been kicked out my house because I wouldn't, get sober. And so I was staying at my drug dealer's house. And I get back to her house, and she's like, she sees all these marks all over my body, and she was freaking out. She was like, did someone rape you? Are you okay? I was like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. And then I looked down, and my legs from my knees up are just covered in bruises because I was itching so bad that I was digging into my skin, and it was just like, claw marks, fingerprints. My boyfriend at the time, apparently my back had it too. Like, he started accusing me of stuff, and I didn't have any recollection of anything from the night before. And I found out later that it was in fact not meth. It was in fact not heroin. It was fentanyl, and nobody told me. Like, that's how quickly it can just.
They're lacing a lot. I mean, there's people even smoke weed and die of an overdose because it was laced with fentanyl, and that's one reason why the numbers are. And I don't want to, because numbers, because we're talking about lives, precious, beautiful, wonderful lives, and
right.
that people, some I know intentionally are taking fentanyl because that's their DOC, but then many of them are not intentionally taking it. Nonetheless, it's taking lives, a lot of lives.
Yeah, it's.
Well,
I'm glad I got out of it when I did, because it's very scary out there right now.
I'm so stupid. It occurs to me that we're like 15 minutes into this, and I haven't even said who you are. Anyway, so Melinda from Lovelady Center in Birmingham, Alabama, and you and Your mom started it. I would say just because of previous conversations with you that I guess at first at least it was maybe more your mom or but you still went along with it.
Yeah, with her from day one.
And now your mom's no longer with us, unfortunately, and you're carrying on that legacy. So would you since I'm clearly not all mentally here right now and should have done this at the beginning, if you would just real quick kind of take us through how the what Love Lady is and how it started and you know where you're at now with that.
I don't even think I've told you the story myself.
Well, I know it because she's been on Treasures from Darkness with me and JJ,
okay.
so I know it, but other people might not, and that's probably why I didn't bring up even who you are, because I'm like, I've already talked about it.
We jumped right in conversation because we're because I love listening to what the Lord is doing in any of our Love Ladies' lives. So I've enjoyed listening very much. What's just at the success and living life at its best, which to me is what recovery. I know everybody's success story is everybody's success story is different, and I love to listen to it. So I appreciate where we're at, even though it might be a little bit out of order. But as far as the Love Lady Center and how we started, we started from getting into a mess of our own, and through that mess of our own, my mother, seeing an injustice in the justice system, decided that that the Lord was leading her. She'd been saved most of her life, but avoided ministry. And as we were going through this hardship and this crisis of our own, and Mom feeling like this was God getting Mom's attention, wanting her to go into full-time ministry, she starts going into the Birmingham work release to help women in prison. She believed that's where God was leading her. So she goes on a Monday night. She calls me after she leaves, and she's like, Melinda, I think you're supposed to be with me. I've met my people, and I know this is where God wants me, and I believe that He wants you to come with me. And I did not feel that God could use me. I had made a mess of my life, and just walking in shame. So I argued with her, but my mom was a very hard person to argue with. So she walked fast. That's my daughter, Maddie. So anyway, Mom being a hard person to say no to, I eventually, gave in and said, fine, Mom, we'll go. She said, okay, we're going to go tomorrow night. So we went on a Tuesday night to the Birmingham Work Release, and I fell in love with the women at Birmingham Work Release, and was very passionate about wanting to help the women at Birmingham. We would minister and we would pray for them. Women would line up, we would be there for hours for Mom to pray for them. And a lot of times we'd have conversation with them, and we'd ask, in the conversation, they'd say they'd been in prison several times. And me getting in trouble one time, I was like, I know I never want to get in trouble again, and I never want to go through the fear of what's going to happen and the trauma of all that. And I was, being taken away from your kids and all this fear that I personally went through in my time. I'm like, why do you keep getting in trouble? I kind of like that dude on your face, on your comments, when he was like, why don't you just quit? I was kind of like, I got in trouble one time. That was enough. I mean, why do you keep coming back? And they said things like, well, I keep going back to the same place that I came from, and really I don't know how to do different. And then a common thing that people would say is, some of the women would say, as I went to a halfway house, and Mom said, well, that's the problem. It's halfway. There's power in the tongue. We need a whole way house. In October of 2004, she opened up her home with the intent of having a whole way house, and we got our first 7 women. October 25th, 2004. It grew really quick, and by the following May, Mom had 30 plus living at her house. I had 7 women living at my house, and the newspaper had heard what we were wanting to do, and so they ran they wanted to run an article. and it came out on Mother's Day of 2005, and it said, "From prison to mansion, women get fresh start." Beautiful article. But when it came out, the neighborhood knew we were helping women. They didn't know we were helping women coming out of prison. So suddenly they said their lawn furniture was had come up stolen, that we were running a prostitution ring out of there. Just all these things that they started fearing or believing or thinking were like, this is crazy. So they started doing what they could to shut us down. And unbeknown to us, there were zoning laws on how many people could live in a home. So, and clearly 30 plus living in your home was
a little too much.
A little over the limit. So Mom started looking for a place that she felt that could house that many women that had proper zoning, and so she ended up going to a little.
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't there like one of the times when one of the neighbors tried to like block Miss Brenda out? Can you tell that story?
And it's a terrible story. It's actually in her book that she wrote, Miss Brenda and the Love Ladies. But so between May and August, when the newspaper article came out, and in August when we started, it was actually end of August, 1st of September that we moved into the current location. She was redheaded and feisty, okay, and the neighbor was I don't really know, but just as equally feisty, I guess. And there was Mom was wanting to go get ice cream, and some of the girls that lived at her house wanted to get ice cream. So she loads up in the car with some of the women, with three of the women and her youngest son, and who was like 5 at the time. And they're driving down the driveway, and there's a very small part of the driveway where both neighbors had the same, where Mom and shared it with the neighbor, and he was coming up and she was going down, and I think she thought she was taking on the whole matter at that moment. Like, everybody's talking bad about my women, and she just refused to move, and he refused to move, and he had a gun, and she's like, "I am not moving, you move. I've got the right of way, you don't." And they got an argument over who had the right of way and who was supposed to move, and one of the girls in the car calls me and says, "Hey, your mom, something's not okay. Your mom won't move. And this guy won't move," and we're like they're head to head here, and so I call Mom's phone, and she's not answering my phone call, and eventually they hand her the phone. I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she was like, "Melinda, I'm tired of it. They're running over us, and they're not going to run over me, and they're trying to hurt us and these women, and they're not going to just as feisty as she was, and I was like, "Mom, you're just trying to go get ice cream. For the love of God, move your car." And she I said, "And you're demonstrating Christ right now to these girls, and this is not what they need to see." And anyway, she would not move the car, but I believe in the story she wrote it, that I actually went and moved it for her, but it was actually my brother who actually moved it, she would not move it, but she did get out of the car and let somebody else move so they could get by and they could go get ice cream.
If you knew Miss Brenda too, it makes it even funnier.
Funny. I'm not gonna move it. Okay, he can, but I'm not. Another kind of, and we'll get back to the story, but another funny Mom story is, it was Memorial Day weekend, where this was in 2019. Were you there?
I may have been there. I know one of the times during restoration, I went. That might have been when I was there.
So it was
Memorial. Was it when we moved a bunch of furniture?
No. This was when I had a woman. We have a zero tolerance on physical, on being any physical altercations. If you physically attack anyone, you cannot stay. We had a woman who was struggling with mental illness, and she had a temper, and she had lost her cool more than one time. And I was like, "Baby, you're going to have to go." We tried to find her, get her the mental help. She wouldn't get it. And it was just that constant battle that we have with mental health. Yeah. And so she, so I told her she could not stay, and I tried to put her somewhere else, and she said, no, I'm just going to leave. So she'd leave, but then at night she would come back, and they would call me and say, Melinda, can she please stay? I'm like, okay, she can stay on the couch tonight, but tomorrow morning she's going to have to stay so we can find her a place, because this isn't safe. But she would be gone in the morning before I would get there, and so. But she did this like 3 nights, and so I knew we were fixing to go into Memorial Day weekend, and so on Thursday night when they called, I said she can stay. This is our last night. She has to stay tomorrow so we can find her somewhere to stay, safe to stay. She cannot. So when I got there Friday morning, she was still there, and I told her that that intake was gonna help find her another place. They go to help her find. So intake goes and calls places, but she won't cooperate with them. And it's getting towards the end of the day, and I'm like, y'all, we have got to find this woman a place. And they're like, Melinda, she's refusing. She's saying you're going to have to come down there and talk to her. I'm like, okay, fine. And I usually try to be gentle, but I remember
now.
It was a bad day.
Yeah.
It was a bad day. Everybody, half the staff takes off to make a 4-day weekend out of a 3-day weekend. And I'm tired. I'm like, this girl is going to have to go get help. This is nuts. And so I go downstairs and I'm like, baby, you have got to cooperate. We want to help you. You've got to cooperate. She goes, Miss Melinda, I'm just going to stay here. I'm like, baby, no, you're not. And when I told her that, it just like all the hope deflated out of her, and she physically attacked me. I'm talking about physically attacked me, pulling my hair, and all. Then as she would attack, she's attacking me. All the other women would come and try to get her off of me, and I'm scared they're going to hurt her. So I'm like, y'all get off of her, quit. And when I get all them off of her, she would come back after me again, and it was a mess. It was a mess. They'd called the police, and they, what hair of mine was left. I had it in my hand. I mean, it was bad, and I bleeding and stuff, and God love her. It was a mess. Well, I call my mom and I tell her, after the police and everybody left, and she's gone. I call Mom and I tell her, because I knew she was fixing to hear it from other people, and I said, hey Mom, I just need to let you know that I was attacked, but I'm okay. And she's like, who did it? And she just went, and I said, Mom, it doesn't matter, I'm okay, it's fine. And I kind of gave her the quick synopsis, what happened. And then my son he works for us. He's over our human resource department, and he was coming in the building, and my mom had pulled up, and he was coming back in. He did not know what was going on, and Mom pulled up and said, where's such and such? And Joseph said, oh, I just passed her. She's down there by that gas station. So he points and tells her where she's at, and she takes off. And then Joseph walks in the building, and they tell him what happened. He runs upstairs to check on me, and then he realized what he just did. He said, oh no, I just told Mimi where she's at.
He just turned around.
So I called Mom, and I'm like, Mom, I said, Mom, where are you doing? She goes, I'm going to whip her butt. And I'm like, no, you're not. You can't. It will destroy this ministry. You cannot do that. And it was that it took me so long to talk her down. She was just one feisty woman. Thank God she never found her, and she did calm down, and all was well. But that was my mom was just
bear came out.
Yeah, no, it would come out. She'd come out for me, but she'd come out for them too. It was so that was one of those nights. So anyway, Mom, how we ended up where we are right now, doing what we're doing right now. Mom finds a small little building. It was for sale. She calls the real estate agent. The real estate agent tells her that it would work for what she's looking for. And so he says, but to get the key to that building, you go into the old East End Hospital to get it. It's right, across the street. And that building's also vacant. Just knock on the door and tell them what you want. Tell them that you want the key to that building, and he'll get it for you. And take a look at it and call me back and let me know what you think. So she knocks on the building that we're in now, which is a 275,000 square foot building. It is an old hospital. She knocks on the door. Security guard answers and says, she says, I need the key to that building over there. And he says, well, come on in, I'll get it for you. And she stepped over the threshold of that building, the center. And she immediately knew this is where God was taking her. She never got the key to the little building. She came and got me, and she said, Melinda, come on, I want to show you where I think God's taken us. Now, for me, when Mom decided to take the women from prison to her home, that made plenty of sense to me. It was a need. It was obvious it was a need. We've never, Mom always brought people home my whole life. We never lived just us, so it made sense to me. But when she took me to the center to show me where she said God was bringing us, just knowing our resources, we didn't have the resources, we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have, we didn't have money, and Mom shows me this ginormous building, and she says this is where I think God's bringing us. And I'm like, Mom, this is borderline insanity. I mean, we there's no way. And she says, I know it is, but do you know how many lives God can change in a place like this? And she put the last bit of money, the very last bit of money that she had on that building. And I did, and I thought she was throwing that money away. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And just one miracle after another, after another, after another. And when I did not think that, the first 10 years of the ministry was so extremely hard, but it was, and I appreciate the hard now because it showed me that God was in it, that I can't give anyone glory other than Him, because there's no way that anyone else could have done what's been done at the Lovelady Center. We initially helping women coming out of incarceration. We're still very, very passionate about helping women out of incarceration. That's, we have a program where women are finishing their sentence with us. We have parolees. We got somebody yesterday that just finished a 25-year sentence. So we're very passionate about reentry and helping women reenter society after incarceration. The bulk of our women, though, is coming out of addiction. Coming out of, we help women out of homelessness, domestic violence, incarceration. We do a lot of alternative sentencing. Instead of going to prison, instead of prison, they come to the center for a chance. So it's very diversified now.
There's not a lot of people who do that kind of stuff anymore.
Which part?
Well, the whole thing. The answering that need, for one, bringing people who are getting out of prison into your house. Whoops.
It's gonna be loud. Sorry.
And then saying, hey, you know what? We really don't have what we need to get this building. But I have some, and yeah, we're just going to do it because I thought that's what God's saying to do.
No. Like, people come to me, they come to us a lot, and it was like, what do we do? What kind of business plan do we come up with? And I said, well, here's the deal, y'all. We didn't have a business plan. All my mom knew was that God said to do it. And Mom thought churches were going to help, and now we have beautiful, wonderful relationship with churches, and I am so grateful for the churches. But when you're coming in I think God put us in a position to where no one could get glory for it but Him, because it did not make sense, because no church came in and helped us. No, it was Hurricane Katrina that launched us with the ability to initially finance the center, but then the FEMA came in and helped, but then they left. We had evacuees out of New Orleans for they were supposed to be there for 6 months, but it ended up not being there that long. They were there 6 months. They were supposed to be there a year, but anyway, it was just crazy. And again, I think that's just. And then when you see the need, then there's nothing that can stop. Once the passion, the desire to pursue what God had called us to do was what ignited it. And then when you see the need, the Lord and then you see the freedom, you see the deliverance, and then you see the hardships, you see the good and the bad. It's just like there's just passion that just doesn't. It's relentless.
There's times that I tell Dillon, like, if I'm having a really hard time, like, because we've had just in the past 5 years, we've had, well, I wouldn't say 5 because he got fixed last year, but like in a span of 4 years, we've had 7 miscarriages since I've, gotten sober and everything. And there's been times it's been so hard. And I've told him, I said, I just want to go home. He's like, well, what do you mean? I said, I want to go back to Love Lady. He's like, but you're not using right now. You don't need that. I'm like, I know, but it's just, I need that comfort. I need that closeness. He's like, babe, you're going to have to figure out how to function. When life gets hard, you're going to have to figure out how to function without going back. And I'm just like, I know, but it was such an impact that's really been the only place that I've just felt absolutely safe.
That's beautiful, and I'd say that's the presence of God. And I know He's omnipresent, but when there's that many people fighting for their lives like that, and they find that safe place in one place, I do believe it's very special. But then come to like the prayer furnace or something. Come hang out with us. We've got people who come back, and when they hear where there's the prayer furnace, they're like, hey, let me come just hang out in the devotion area during prayer furnace or something.
There's times that we'll be driving through, and we were there. When was it? Last 2 Fridays ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We had to go to
UAB.
UAB, and I was trying. If we didn't have to get the kids, I was trying to get them to have us go swing by and come visit with you guys, because I'm just like, we've gone to church there since I've been back, but with our schedules and stuff, it's been hard. But I took him. We weren't even dating yet. We were just like hanging out, because at first I didn't want nothing to do with him. Like, my mom told me that the only way that I could get out of the house is if I went around him, and I was like, fine, whatever. Because I was just done with guys. Like, it was just horrible. And so we went there, and I introduced him to Pastor Leslie. And Pastor Leslie was always telling me that I needed to quit trying to be with guys. He's like, you need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on recovery. Because those 3 times, 2 of them when I was in there, but all those times that I relapsed was because of a guy, and it was the same exact guy. And that's Pastor Leslie. Second relapse, when I was there, I had a counseling session with him, and I was telling him like just these things I was feeling. Like, I don't even remember what all it was, but I just had these weird feelings leading up, and I saw him on I want to say it was either Wednesday or Thursday for my meeting, and he was telling me that it sounded like I was being oppressed by some demons. And he explained to me, infestation, oppression, and possession. And he was really concerned for me. He like prayed with me and all that. And Jen, what is her name now? I don't remember her last name now. She just recently got married. Jen Stevenson is her name now. She got married. Can't remember what it was when we were roommates, but she was even able to tell like something was up. She knew I was going to go hang out with that guy that weekend. I had this whole scheme figured out, how I was going to lie to all of you guys and get there. Like, she knew the whole thing. And I still wouldn't listen to nobody. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so I went, and I tricked everybody into me being able to go. And my mom knew. Moms just always know, I guess. But she knew what was going on, and I got cocky with her on the way back, and I was like, I thought that I had signed a thing when I came there saying that y'all couldn't tell people if I was there and this and that. So I'm on the way back, and had already used at this point, so I was still high and messed up, and I'm like, oh, you can call up there. They're gonna tell you I've been there this whole time. I haven't done nothing. Blah 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 blah. Well, she in fact did call. And she found out I'd been gone since Friday. And I did something to get it, flush my system out. So as soon as I got there, I was drug tested. And I passed the drug test. And then the next day, I was up all night texting that guy, And the next day, I went to a doctor's appointment. And then Holly Martin tells me I have to come into her office. And I'm like, oh, God. So I go through and I start deleting everything. Well, apparently in my state of mind, I didn't delete everything. And so she goes and takes my phone, and she found a message clear as day that got me in trouble for premarital sex. and using. So she called me out on both things. I was like, no, I didn't. She's like, Christina, I'm looking at the message. You literally said this. I was like,
You deleted everything, but the most important one.
So then, like, you know, she sent me up there to you, and I started lying, saying that it was gas station dope, because she was like, how did you pass your test? And I was like, oh, it's because I did gas station dope, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you do realize if that's what you did, you're going home. She said, you're not going to stay. I was like, okay, well then, yeah, I did meth and I flushed my system. But anyway, so like, you know, Pastor Leslie, like it was almost like he knew all of that was going to happen. And that night, no, was it that night? It was a couple of days later, we had a church service, because I was mad. When I got put back in restoration, I didn't want to talk to nobody. I was slamming my stuff around. Like, I was mad. And I see him on Wednesday at church, and the song, I said it the other day, Reckless Love came on. And I just broke down, because I was like, literally every single lie that I could come up with got knocked down. Every single door to get me back there was kicked down.
Yeah.
And it just broke me. I was like, oh my gosh. And so, you know, and I told Pastor Leslie, you know, because he didn't know I was back in restoration or none of that, you know, and I told him what I did. And that's when he was telling me again, you know, you need to cut the guys out, leave everything alone. So I give this one over here, and I take him up there, and like Pastor Leslie meets him, and he prays over us and was asking God to bless this beautiful relationship, to bless us to get like just all these things. And I was like, Pastor Leslie's always telling me to stay away from guys. Yeah. Well, what is this? So I told Dillon afterwards, I said, well, I think that was my sign telling me that it's okay to date you. I think that was God telling me that it was okay, like through Pastor Leslie, because he was him and Mark Wadley are the only two men that I've listened to out of this entire thing. And Mark Wadley actually married us.
Sweet.
Yeah, he told me the other day that I'm a favorite, but you know, I'm sure he tells everybody that. But
he doesn't. I promise you. Yeah, that's awesome. I love
we have it on video.
Yeah, we have it on video where he said that I was a favorite.
Girl, we worship to that song, Reckless Love, and I tell girls all the time, I say, you're worshiping to that song, but I need you to understand, as you plead out to God to tear it down, knock it down. Don't get mad when he tears it down and knocks it down, because because it's that love that reveals things, that exposes things, and it's out of love. So yeah. Just, you know, you're worshiping and you're praying to it. Now he's going to sit you down. So
well, there was something. Sorry, but there was somebody, a pastor somewhere, evangelist somewhere, some point in my life said, you know, when you invite Jesus in, it is the same thing as if you have a house that you've been living in that you have never cleaned. You've never thrown anything away. You've never dusted, never mopped, never vacuumed, never cleaned anything. And then you invite Jesus in, and at first it is painful, because he comes in and he looks at everything. He has a floodlight, and he's shining a light into every single room, and he's cleaning out all the mess out, and he's dusting and mopping and vacuuming and doing all the dishes and taking out all the trash and taking out all the crap you've been hoarding for all these years, and he's hauling it out the door. And we are like children, in a sense, like with a dirty diaper. Yeah. Like, yeah, I know it's gross, I know it stinks, but it's warm and it's mine. You know, like Dave Ramsey says about our financial crap. Like, yeah. But that's what he does. So at first it's like, oh, this is extremely painful. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. But then when he's done, you're like, oh, so this is what it feels like to breathe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is what it feels like to be actually free. When you don't have to look at that mess. It's not, and then you have the ability when somebody tries to bring it up to you. Well, I know what you used to do. That's the key. What I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That person's dead now. I'm a new person. Yes, I used to do that crap. I used to be a horrible human being, but that person's gone now.
Amen.
And now it's a thing to celebrate. Now it's your story. Now it's something that can help other people, save other people.
I want to just
maybe save them from making some mistakes, but sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
You're great. No, I love what you're saying. I want to agree, especially like Christina, when you're talking about different she came in and I think a lot of women and a lot of people do this. They come in, they let God in, and you let him in your house, so to speak, and he is doing the deep clean and everything. But then he doesn't go anywhere you don't let him to go. We've got free will. Like, what rooms are we going to let him in? And so it's okay. We want to. We're going to surrender the bitterness. We're going to surrender the unforgiveness. We're going to. But then there's this. If it's the men or the very few people just want to hold on to the drugs, but it's that root, or that thing that's keeping you, that's hope for the rest of the process. Is that then what we have a Bible study that we do sometimes during our class break, that is letting him in that one room that you haven't let him in. Give him the keys. Yeah. You don't even have to unlock it. He will. Just give him the keys and let him go in and let him him do what he does, and just surrender it all. Mm-hmm. So I love to hear y'all's story as you just and that's our what we at the Love Lady Center, we are we do offer recovery. We are very passionate about recovery, but I tell every woman that comes in, we are not just a place of recovery. We believe that there's more to life than just recovery. We want you to live beyond recovery. You have to have the wholeness of Christ, and to live that purpose-driven life. You have to achieve recovery, and you've got to get there. So that's definitely the step. But we want to go beyond that, where you're thinking beyond just that place of recovery, and so we're so you can live the wholeness. And I think that's it's when I say it's more, just because God offers more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say.
Hang on, just real quick.
Say this.
Well, I know, but I'm going to forget the statistic if I don't say it, because it's there, and if I don't say it, it's going to be gone.
Well, don't let me forget what I was going to say.
Okay. Do you? And I may have asked you this with JJ. I don't remember, but do you know the statistic between the faith-based recovery centers and the non-faith-based, like success rates?
Not just the. There's different statistics that have been given, and they are your chances of recovery with a faith component is, I want to say, like 70% higher. It's high.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
AA and NA is 1%, and then the faith-based ones is somewhere between 70 and 80%.
That's your chances are way higher. Also other factors are long-term. If you've gone to a long-term recovery versus short-term, I do believe that treatment and recovery, I believe that both have their place. I know a lot of treatment places think that recovery is not not as valued as treatment. Treatment's more the scientific, when recovery is more of for like the faith component for us. But I believe that the Lord, the Lord's creator of the brain as well. And so I think to include them both, there's a lot of wisdom in that, and that's something that I'm learning and trying to dig in more on how to do that, because I believe we're seeing better success with the two combined. But I think anyway, I've got a lot of opinions about that. We don't have to share them all here. What were you going to say, sweetheart?
Well, I was going to say, like, that Sunday, I had that talk with Pastor Leslie when I got back to the center. That Sunday, it was one of the Sundays where y'all have like different people that'll come in and do the preaching and stuff, like guest preachers and stuff. It wasn't Highlands, but it was like another group of ladies. And I was sitting there and I was praying, and I was telling God, that I was ready. I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I said, I'm tired of this. I can't remember all the things that I said, but like as soon as I said to him, I'll do whatever you want, I looked up, and one of the ladies that was over there praying over people. People were falling out and everything. And this woman looks at me and she does her hands and asks me to come up. And I just looked up. I said, okay. So I got up and she starts praying over me. And, you know, I had fallen out before. I had just recently been to a revival somewhere that the church had let us all go to. And there was people, you know, laying hands there. And I'm really particular, like, with certain people laying hands on me. Like, I'm like, if I don't get a vibe, I don't want you doing, especially if I feel like you're just doing it for show. Yeah. Like, here, let me put my hands on you and lay you out. And I felt, I don't want to talk bad about people, but I felt like there were some of them that was kind of doing that. Mm-hmm. So, like, and a woman had touched me and I fell out at the revival. I didn't fall out all the way. I just kind of, like, I could just feel a pressure knock me down to my knees and then just slowly pushing me down. So I knew what to expect when this woman pulls me up there. And, you know, she does the thing of, you know, telling me, you know, I'm going to give you a hug, or I'm going to do this, and you're going to feel something, and, you know, you're going to probably, you know, fall backwards. And people were over there near me. Well, I fall back and they're standing over me, and I don't even think they were speaking in tongues. I think they were just praying. They may have spoken in tongues, but I started, like, kind of going in and out, not really know what was going on. And they're over me. And I just start almost like doing like a shaking sense, and I started throwing up, and I was almost like fighting it, like I was squirming. And they had one of my friends that I was in restoration with, you know, told her, you know, come over there and hold my hand. And Sandra was actually there during that. Sandra's standing there like, oh my goodness, what is happening? Like, are you okay? So I'm laying there and Morgan's holding my hand. And I would kind of jerk away when she wasn't touching me, and I could hear them saying that, like saying, you know, stay there with her. She, you know, she's trying to go back. Just keep holding on to her. And then they give me something, and I start to, you know, throw up on, because I start rolling over on the floor, and I was throwing up black, like black and brown. Yeah, I don't know what was happening to me, but I was just full blown, like, on the floor for probably a good 10-15 minutes, just expelling all of this stuff out of me. And then at the end, like, my whole body was sore. Like, I was just mentally, physically exhausted. And Sandra was still standing there, like, she'd been apparently standing over me the whole time. And she looks at me and she goes, are you okay? Is everything all right? I said, I don't even know. Like, I didn't know what was happening, but I've fallen out since and kind of gotten the sick throw up sensations at other churches, but I have never in my life felt such a just expulsion of stuff coming out of me. And I didn't have any issues after that. I think
definitely sounds like you were delivered, and that was the deliverance process. And that's beautiful, wonderful. Now, dude, just because we might have some people that are watching who that could freak out, so I do want them people to know that that's not that was you. You were God positioned you in that place to receive what you needed to receive at that time, and we give Him glory. I've never fallen out in the spirit ever. And I used to ask, I don't think. And I used to ask God, like, you know, like, I would literally have been in you know, I've been going to church services since I was 11 years old, and I've never I've been in meetings where everyone has been either slain in the spirit or something, and I'm like, God, why am I not? And what I felt like God showed me like 10-15 years ago was because of the position that I am in, it helps that I believe anyway, and so it's a testimony that I can believe without that, and I still believe that His Spirit is real and that He touches us all differently. It's all very unique. I have a unique way, you know, that God, when we develop that personal relationship with Jesus, it is very personal, and that it's not the same for everybody, and that we all don't experience Him the same. He's the same. We just experience Him differently. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like that's like I've never fallen out.
He's also been through like he's explained to me before that sometimes God builds people to withstand that.
Yeah, I'm a drummer. I don't claim to be a singer, but I have sung, whatever. But I've experienced his presence very strongly, but I was playing drums to for the music while that was happening. And so it's like, well, if the drummer falls out,
you can't really,
that's noticeable. So, I think sometimes we're built to, some people maybe are built to withstand. Obviously nobody can withstand his full presence, but he allows us, certain people maybe, to experience his presence in a powerful way, but without going, okay, let me, knock you on the floor. You have a job to do right now. But I've still experienced, I'll experience him driving down the road, and it's just like tears just start flowing, and it's like God, he's always here, but he's wanting me to physically feel him right now for some reason, whatever the circumstance is that I have going on at that moment. But what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, my mom, she's been trying to figure out, since she started going back to church a lot, she's been trying to figure out what type of church she wants to go to, because we grew up in I don't even know what denomination it was. I always thought it was non-denominational, but I think that I ended up finding out it was like Church of Christ maybe, but because they did all the tongue speaking and the falling out and all that back then. But so that's what she grew up around, so that's what she's used to. And she ended up going to an apostolic type church, which wasn't, I'm not going to say anything mean about it, just wasn't it. And so now she's been going to these others that, like, they're non-denominational, but they kind of go more on the holiness side. And so they don't do any of the music like what we do. They do the hymns, and they do a lot of the tongue speaking too, and the falling out. And they react to it different than what I'm used to. I'll see them, like, a preacher will kind of put his hands up and say something, and his hand will shake, and he'll speak tongues over, and then they'll start kind of jumping back and forth like that in the air. And used to, I would be kind of like, oh my God, that's weird. But now it's kind of, after you saying that, it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe that's just the experience God is giving them, and that's just different than my experience. What I have with God.
To me, it's the same. You want to be, one thing is you want to be careful, how you judge it, because that's
right.
Because that's I think the scripture tells us that that you judge a tree by its fruit, or there's different ways that that we've been given the right to judge certain things, but at the same time, I think just as we all experience things differently. And right. Just when people are in recovery, or when people are struggling with a sin, or it's just like we don't need to get caught up in those details or those specifics. Now, when they start influencing you, then you need to. But as far as the way that you worship, or the way that you choose, how you draw near to Him and how He draws near to you, that's between you and Him, or your struggle. I just want to help you through it. It doesn't matter what it is, and because I'm passionate about loving people through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that we got to figure out what it's wrong. I think that to me it's all related on how we love people. We're gonna love you through it. We're not gonna judge it. We're just gonna. Now again, if it starts bringing destruction to your house,
right,
or it starts influencing you, or you're allowing it to have power over you, okay, now it's time for me to judge it. Do I right. want those hands being laid on me? Do I want?
Right. Yeah.
Then you do.
Yeah.
But from a distance, all right, buddy.
Yeah.
Just
because I've gone with her to the one that she's at now a couple of times, and the people there, they're just so lovely. They're not one of those, like, because I've made it clear to them from the beginning. I'm like, hey, I don't want someone to just come running up on me, putting hands on me. Because, like, after my brother died, we were somewhere, and they might, if they ever see the video, they'll probably see this, but I kind of quit going to that church after that because my brother had just died, and it was literally the Sunday after he died, and I didn't even realize at the time, but he died at 7:00 on a Sunday. It was 7:00 in the evening, and when this was happening, it was 7:00, and I had it was a elevation song that I had shown my brother before, and I had them playing it in there, and I was just, kind of in one of my moments thinking about him, praying and praising, and my mom wanted me to come up there with her because she was having a moment, so she wanted me to come up there with her and, hold on to her. So we're standing there, we're having a moment, holding on to each other, and then all of a sudden, I just feel hands just all over me, speaking in tongues, like to the point where I couldn't even breathe. And I got to the point, I told Dillon afterwards, I said, and this might sound bad to say, but I told Dillon, I said, if they would have been touching me any longer than they were, I was this close to like swinging on somebody, because I'm like, I need space. And I couldn't get away. I would kind of, back up. And then my mom, she's very sensitive to it, so she's kind of starting to lean down like she's gonna fall out, and I'm still holding on to her, and it was just like the whole thing was just, I don't want to say ruined, but it felt more, it didn't feel special anymore. So when she took me to this other church, without telling them all that, that's what I told them. I said, if I'm sitting out in the pew and you're preaching something and you feel like I need to come up there and say something, don't just come out there and drag me up there. Don't just come out there and start touching me. I'm like, let me come to you. So there's been times, like, he knows some of my testimony, and he was preaching one day, and he had said to me after I told him some of it, he was saying, that's a really good testimony. I feel like, people in the church might need to hear that. And I said, yeah, maybe one day, because I get real nervous talking around a bunch of people. So we're back in the church, and he was preaching about something, and then he was kind of looking at me and saying something about if anybody has something they want to say. And I could tell he wanted me to, but I wouldn't do it. And he didn't do nothing else. He just said, okay, all right, guys, well, let's go ahead and pray us out. And so afterwards, I thanked him. I said, thank you for not, pressuring me. Because there's been other churches that Dillon's seen it. They will full blown be like, I'm not going to stand up here and beg you. That's between you and God. If you don't want to come up here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I don't think that's what God wants us to do. Like,
Yeah.
we can handle it, so, but it's a lot better there. And it's helped me with my judgment now. Cause I'm just like, that's not my relationship. That's their relationship. That's how they want to do it. That has nothing to do with me. So I need to just, if I start to, if it gets loud and I start to get annoyed, I just kind of turn and do my own thing. But I don't sit there and be like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? I used to, but
How long ago did your brother pass?
How long has he been passed?
It was right after I got back home from basic, so it's
been like 6 months. It's been since September.
Yeah.
He passed.
It's
like
coming
literally
up on a year. Like, here's.
Oh God, don't tell me that.
Well, no. Well, sorry. No. It'd be after August because I got home in August.
Because it was literally, I had texted you and Holly both about trying to get him into a program because he was trying to go into a program.
Yeah.
And from what they've been telling me, he was sober already. He just wanted to go into a program to kind of help him.
It was September.
It was September? Okay. He was wanting to go into a program, I guess, to kind of help him stay and get readjusted and all that. And literally less than a week after I texted you and Holly, he passed away.
Yeah, I remember now that you said that.
Yeah. Because it was
a car accident though, for him.
Yeah.
He was driving, going somewhere, and he was trying to pass somebody, and I guess he couldn't tell how far between somebody else on the other side or something. So he went over there, and then I guess he had like a head-on collision or something, right?
No, he hit a tree.
thought that yeah, that's right. He went around the person and then he hit the tree. I remember now.
He was
Yeah.
trying to pass somebody. It's 2-lane road. He was trying to
Yeah.
pass a truck that was in front of him, and when he went to pass him, I guess he thought he had more time than he did. There was a car that was coming toward them, and he didn't, I guess, notice that the truck he was passing had backed off so he could get back over in front of him to avoid the car coming at them, and so he swerved to the left off the road, and there was an embankment, and then there was some trees, and he went down the embankment, and when he hit the bottom of it, the car went back up in the air, and he hit the trees about 6 foot up the tree, so it hit and then fell. So that's how he went. Which I told her family. I told her family that they're obviously upset, obviously devastated, as you would imagine and expect. And I said, if you're looking for a silver lining, there is one. And they said, well, what's the silver lining? I said, well, we knew that he was a believer. They talked about it while I was at basic, her and
yeah, that song I was talking about, we sat up and we'd listen. I would show him all sorts of different worship music. He'd show me his music.
And I said, so he was a believer, for one. That's one silver lining. That's a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, he was sober when he went. So yeah, he passed away early by our standards.
Mm-hmm.
However, by God's standards, he may have passed away at just the right time.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to go until it's God's time for you to go. And we know where he's at. And you'll see him again. This isn't a permanent basis separation. You'll see him again. And that seemed to help a little bit.
There's times like, my mom believes like that. And then there's other times that I don't know, like, if people say things to her, but then there's other times that she's like, well, what if he's not in heaven because of his, his addictions? What if he didn't have time to, ask for forgiveness and he's not up there? And I'm just like, you can't think like that. Like, we knew his heart. Like, when he stayed with me, he would tell me, because she was always trying to get us to come to her church. Mm-hmm. And he showed me on his phone, he said, I don't need to go to church. He said, I can sit right here and I can do my church on my phone. And he would show me videos that he would watch, and he would, we would talk about God. We would talk about the Bible. I'm like, I know that he knew who God was. He had a relationship with God, and he was a very kind person. Now, when he was on drugs, yeah, he could be a little mouthy. We had a couple of times that we would fight and stuff, but he still would give you the shirt off of his back. He was the kindest person. We actually have it on his obituary, but Dillon pointed out, what is it, 2 Corinthians? The love is patient, love is kind. And all the things in that describes Kris. And so Dillon said that one day, and I told it to my mom and them, and she had me write it out, and they actually put it on his obituary. And I have it pinned to my page with a bunch of pictures of him. But, he was the embodiment, we feel like, of how Jesus would have been and would have treated people when he was here. That's how Kris was.
Yeah.
And you can't sit there and say, oh, well, he was doing drugs, so he's not going to go to heaven.
I do. I definitely do not believe that. I definitely do not believe
I don't need
that. I mean, that's like if you're texting and driving and you die in a car wreck from texting and driving. I mean, I do believe that. Now I don't, a little bit, I do think that people can die prematurely. I do think that sometimes that that they had a plan and a purpose, but they made choices that has prevented them from fulfilling that purpose. I also believe that the Lord will take you before he loses you.
Yeah. That's what Dillon was saying.
And I'm very, very passionate about that. And I also think that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he does just that. So I think sometimes it's those decisions that lead to that. I know but I definitely, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and only through him is eternal life. And if you have a personal relationship with him, and it's got to be a personal relationship with him, but
Exactly.
sin is not going to prevent you, if you're a believer, if you've got that personal relationship with him, in my opinion. Now, and I love one, don't let the enemy stop you from seeing the Lord in it, if the Lord is in it. And I know, like, when Mom passed, her whole thing, she went, she looked beautiful and wonderful 3 days. It was we have posted pictures of how great she looked just a few days before she went into the hospital, completely unexpected of her getting sick. And then some decisions were made in those 10 days that she was in the hospital. And I can reflect back on those. Did we make a mistake? Did the doctors make a mistake? And did, and I can definitely, I do know that some mistakes were made, and then I can beat myself up. But then my older brother, he had to, so we knew, and me and Mom just knowing how hard she fought life, and she was so feisty and so aggressive, and I'd seen her rebound, like nothing's gonna knock her down, and she had so much. The day she went to the hospital, she had so much fight in her that day, that I, just being her feisty self, and it was just funny. I could tell you a funny story just that day, and so I'm like, there's no way. When my brothers started mentioning that they felt like she might pass, I'm like, y'all have lost your mind. She's going to be mad at y'all when she gets off this ventilator. She is going to whip both of y'all's butt, but I am believing she is coming out of this. She is not. It's not her time. It is not her time. And then God had promised her a long life, and I was hanging on to that for days, and then I was like, you know what? Let me go see what the average life is, and I realized that she's past it. And I'm like, okay, well, like I'm like digging and trying to hold on to hope that she was going to come out of this. But then my brother again, I'm hanging on to hope, and we know that they're going to take her off the ventilator on the December 18th, and I'm saying she's going. I'm hoping she's coming out of it. I'm believing she's coming out of it, and it was at 4 a.m. around 4 a.m. on December 18th. Bo sent me and my twin his devotion for the day, and it was dated December 18th. It was a devotion entry that from his devotion book that he'd purchased, that he'd gotten for Christmas the year before, or whatever holiday that somebody gave him a devotion book. He had it. He was reading it. It was one that you read every day of the year, and on that December 18th day. He did not know that's what he was going to read when he woke up, but it was about the author's mother crossing the finish line and receiving her crown. And the title of it was my mother ran her race well, and it was about her passing. And so when Bo sent me that on December 18th, on the day they're going to take my mom off the ventilator, about this mother crossing, running the race and running it well, I was like, you know what, God, you're taking her today. It's clear you're taking her today. Nothing we could have done could have changed this outcome, because today is her day. It was designed, and I thank him for the gift of that devotion that I don't have to challenge and question. If God gives you a sign, if God shows you something, just embrace it, and then tell the enemy every time he reminds you of something else, just not today. I know the truth. Yeah. I know it, and I'm standing on it.
Actually, I had something like that, not about to that extent, but like I had something kind of help me when my brother died, because, I dealt with a lot of guilt, because when Dillon was gone last year, Kris was staying with me, and I knew about his past addiction. And we told him when he came to stay with us, we said, I'm in recovery, so you can't be doing any of that kind of stuff when you're here. And, at that time he was sober, because he had been staying with my other brother. And he's like, I'm sober. I'm not going to be doing any of that. And so we're like, okay, well, you can do this. Me having my past, I can see the signs. And I had gone out of town a couple of times. And when I would come back, it would just be, he would be gone when I would come back. He wouldn't be coming back until, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning some nights. And sometimes he wouldn't come back for days. And so I just started kind of putting little pieces together. And I would talk to my other brother, and my other brother was just like, well, sleep deprivation can, cause the same stuff. He said, because he was on, I think it was Subutex. So I know this, yeah, Subutex, because that's the one that's in the pill form. He was saying that sometimes that can almost make you act kind of funny, like drugs can too. So he's like, I don't think that's what he's doing. Well, I just wasn't hearing it. I was like, no, I think that's what he's doing. I was getting ready to move to Oklahoma because Dillon was having his physical stuff happening where he was going to be having to get discharged out of the Army because of all of his stuff. So instead of not being a pansy about it and not telling my brother what I thought and how I felt, I lied to him and said that the people that owned the house found out he was living there. And even though they said it was okay for him to stay, they told me they wanted him to leave anyways. And so I said, I'm going to be leaving in July. I need you to be out in a couple of weeks. And, he was respectful. He never said anything disrespectful to me. But one of the days he did say, I was thinking about it. You told me that he said he was okay with it. And then for him to turn around and change his mind like that, you pay the rent there. I'd be telling him to kiss my blank. I said, oh, well, no, can't do that. I'm sorry. And I never told him the truth. Now, his dad knew the truth, and my other brother knew the truth, and they're both telling me, you need to woman up and tell him. But I'm like, well, if he is using, I don't know how he's going to react, because me and him have gotten in fights in the past when he was using. So I was trying to keep all the drama down to a minimum. So he ended up, kind of staying gone. When it was time for him to actually leave, he had been gone for about a week or so. And the last time he'd been at the house, he was supposed to have been taking stuff to move out, and he never did. Because I asked my oldest daughter when he left, she was up kind of walking around, and I noticed that Kris was gone, and I asked her, I said, did he take anything with him? She goes, no, he just got in the car and left. I was like, okay. Didn't see him for about a week or two, and then he told me that he was going to come and get his stuff. Well, then I never heard from him again. Come to find out, he ended up getting arrested. So by the time I went to Oklahoma, he was in jail. So they had to come get all of his stuff and take it to my other brother's house. But I didn't talk to him again. So the last time that I saw him was when he came home from being gone for however long, and we sat in the kitchen and we talked. I don't even remember if we hugged, but we went to bed, and I never saw him again. My mom, my other brother, they've all got to see him since then. And so when he died, I had all that regret for telling him that he had to leave, and, thinking I was this horrible person for assuming, because I never got actual proof that he was doing drugs, so I'm just like, I had all these feelings. Well, their dad, I've known their dad since I was itty bitty. We have different dads, but I've known him since I was a little baby, and he always called me Prissy Chrissy. And we're sitting there talking, and my youngest daughter was sitting there, and he was saying, he's like, I just want you to know that he said your brother adored Mira. He said that's all he could talk about was you and Mira, and how much he loved staying with you, and how grateful he was that he got to be there with you. And after he told me that helped me to just stop with my feelings, like what you're saying, and like the enemy was just attacking me with it left and right, just making me, like, I was apologizing to my other brother when he died, because they let us go. We couldn't see him because of how he looked, but they let us at least go see with a drape over him, let us hold his hand and tell him bye. And I was just looking at my other brother, and I just hugged him and apologized. I don't even know what I was apologizing for, but I was just apologizing for the stuff with Kris, I guess. And he was just like, he's like, why are you apologizing? And I'm just like crying, like, I don't know. But it was one of those things where the enemy was just making, even though his death had nothing to do with me, had nothing to do with our past and any of the stuff that happened, the devil was still just making me feel like I had something to be sorry about, and like something was my fault. And it's taken me a good couple months, hasn't it, to finally just get over it. Not get over it, but
Yeah,
feel a little bit better. Yeah, because there was days it was It was pretty bad. I used to wear his necklace all the time with his ashes in it. I finally have quit doing that and just got back to normal, I think.
More or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely got to just when you have those battles, just okay. You got to remember the truth you stand on, and that he enjoyed being at your house, and that you stepped up as a sister when you needed to step up as a sister, and you operated in boundaries when you needed to operate in boundaries. And I think that's just remember what. And remember that. Don't let the enemy play with your mind. And I think that's what.
Yeah.
The enemy would like to do that to take people down, and we're not going to go down. We're going to keep walking it out.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, it is past my bedtime.
Yeah, us too. I got work tomorrow.
I was gonna say let's wrap it up.
I could see him give me the look about me doing my rambling.
Yeah, I was over here like.
Yeah, I could see it through the camera. I just wanted to finish my sentence.
Glad you did. I've been good to hear it, and it's been great to hear just what God is doing in y'all's lives and what y'all are up to. And I love hearing the recovery journey and just how great y'all are doing and what you're doing now. I think it's beautiful. And I love sharing what Love Lady's doing.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that this, our little venture here grows and helps people. And obviously Love Lady's helping crap tons of people.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask if like one of our days because he's off during the week, maybe one of the days when I'm not working too, come up there and, and visit. Because isn't it Wednesday nights when it's open to the public for church services?
Sunday morning and Wednesday night is when it's open to the public. The only time.
Yeah.
Well, it's always open. It's always open for Love Ladies.
Okay.
So you're welcome. So Sunday night would be fine too. But it's always me or Pastor Leslie on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
Sunday night is always a guest, and then and that's the one that's not open to the public, and then Wednesday night is open.
Okay, because I was thinking about I haven't even said this to him, but like come and visit and everything, but also maybe get some video and stuff like that to go on this too, to kind of show to like help people.
Yeah, and we just did a video recently. I don't think I shared it with y'all. Did I share the one? It's the Legacy of Love. Mom's. I'll send it to you. I'll text it to you. A link to it.
Okay.
It's got some good clips, and it's got some testimonies in it, and it's
okay.
I think it's
that'd be good.
Yeah, because that's what we want to try to do. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting you.
No, it's just we need to wrap it up.
I know. Well, this is something I needed to bring up too. That's something we were going to talk like. Eventually we're trying to help other people like that are, needing help and wanting to get into a recovery center. So that's what we were going to try to like let them know about you guys in case someone needs somewhere to go. I have someone I can reach out to like, hey, they may need some help to get here, get there, and, stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think, and I can't remember what I shared with you, but I also have a link to, a lot of Christian recovery missions throughout the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
It's one website that has a lot of them. I'll send y'all a link to that just so you, if I haven't sent it to you already, that you do have it.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
That'd be awesome.
Well, thank you for being with us and taking time and being up past your bedtime and
it's past mine too.
And hers. I'll go to bed about 2 a.m. because I have videos to edit.